Hello and welcome back to another episode of Inside the Asperger Studios. Few people face their darkest moments and come back with a message strong enough to fill a book. But my guest did. Living with ADHD and bipolar disorder, they found clarity, resilience, and life-changing insight during their time in the mental hospital. Now a published author, they're here to tell us what they learned, what surprised them, and what they want others to know. So sit back, relax, and grab your favorite beverage, and let's learn more about her. See you there, everybody.
I wanna believe in the truth, but only see what I'm shown. Got the freedom to choose, but can't decide on my own. Follow what the group is thinking, bottle up my intuition till it's popping up.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Inside the Asperger Studios. Today I'm joined with Laura Greenberg Schiller. Welcome to the show, Laura.
Thank you so much.
So as I always start off the show with, why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself and we'll get going from there.
Okay, so I am a wife, my husband Matt, and I live with our three kids, Brody, Chloe, and Sydney, in New Jersey, and our Cavapoo Yogi. I was living the best life. I was a successful attorney. I had a side business that was very successful. I loved being a mom. I loved being a wife. Everything was fabulous. And then all of a sudden, I somehow ended up in a mental hospital and my whole life got changed around. First, I thought it was the worst thing that could possibly happen to me when I came home from being in a mental hospital. Now I realize that it was actually a great thing because I learned so many life lessons and I learned so much about myself. And I feel like now I'm such a more joyful person and I do things with purpose and I am a lot less stressed of a human being from my journey the last 4.5 years.
Now let's start off with the obvious. Why did you wind up in a mental hospital in the first
That
place?
is that is a good question. So I didn't know until I was 39 that I was bipolar,
Oh, wow.
but yeah, I had a manic episode and my husband had no idea what was going on. My family had no idea what was going on. My kids were young, so they were non-factors. But my sister, fortunately, is in the field. She's a social worker,
Hmm.
and I have three very close friends that are in the field too. So they realized that I was manic. They first put me in a psych ward because I was that bad. The psych ward was horrible. And then I got to go to a very nice mental hospital. And I was thankful that I was able to do that.
Now you've mentioned that you also have ADHD along with bipolar. Was that the crowning moment when you had that um kind of meltdown that made you feel like there's something deeper going on with you mentally, with your mental health?
I did, yes. I think that was the turn. It realized it. I was actually diagnosed with ADHD even later than bipolar. So I was diagnosed about 2 years ago with ADHD. That though, so ADHD, I was so happy when I got the diagnosis because I knew I had it my whole life. I figured now I could get help on meds. Um, Bipolar, I had no idea I was bipolar, and that was a really, really, really tough cookie to take, that diagnosis.
I mean, I know not from experience, but from talking with someone who didn't know he had bipolar, his doctors tried first thought he had depression, and
Yep,
they were putting him on all these medicines, and he was just like nothing was working. And then
yep,
finally they ran tests, and they're like, you know what, you're bipolar.
yeah.
And he's like, oh wow. And I've known people who are bipolar, and it's serious unless it's found out.
It's a very serious disease. Even when it's found out, it's still a very serious disease because it's the most unpredictable disease. So I've been stable for 4.5 years. Well, I had a depression, but I haven't been manic for 4.5 years. And I just pray that it stays that way, but you never know. And I could be manic and do anything tomorrow. And it's just an unpredictable. But I've learned with that you just have to appreciate each day.
Hmm.
And every day that I'm not manic is or depressed, like today, is a fabulous day in my life. And that's how I live my life. And so every day for the last few years, I've lived a great life because I've been stable. And I just think that it's a blessing every day that I'm stable.
Now, do you miss being a lawyer?
Not one bit. I am a retired lawyer. I think the reason why I'm not a lawyer, to be honest, is because of the mental hospital. In the mental
Mm.
hospital, I they did so much therapy. So I don't know if anyone's been in a mental hospital, but I will just tell you, you do about 6 hours of therapy a day. So you are therapied out. If you want to know about yourself, you go to a mental hospital. You figure out every single thing about yourself in a mental hospital because you have 3 hours of private, you have 3 hours of group therapy, you're doing art therapy. You are like 7 hours a day doing therapy, 6 to 7 hours a day doing therapy. So I learned a lot about myself. And what I learned there was that I strongly disliked being a lawyer. Um, my husband's a lawyer and he loves it. So I don't like to give a bad name to the field because I know other people can be happy. I will say, as someone who has ADHD, which my husband does not have, I give props to, and I know I did it for 17 years with ADHD, but it is very hard to keep track
Hmm.
of hundreds of clients
Hmm.
when you have ADHD. And it's very interesting because when I stopped working as a lawyer, my therapist and psychiatrist both told me that I'd be eligible for disability because I'm bipolar. But honestly, bipolar had nothing to do. I don't think bipolar had that much to do with me leaving law. I think I left law because it was really hard because of ADHD. So if I had to go on, I don't think they're giving disability for ADHD, or a lot of people would have to have disability. So I know I could go on disability for bipolar, but I feel like that's also not accurate. And I didn't go on. I decided not to do it because it really is my ADHD that stopped me from being able to be a successful lawyer, I think.
I mean, I can kind of relate with that. I mean, being someone myself who is AUDHD,
Mm-hmm.
trying to keep up with all my shows, and when I have a guest and then their show doesn't go up for a while, I literally have to go back and re-listen to the very beginning of the episode to say, okay, what was this guest about? What was their story?
Yep.
And ADHD, and someone once told me with ADHD, it's if you don't retain your knowledge and keep using it, you lose it.
Yep. It's
And
so
it's
true.
and people don't realize that when you have ADHD and you're trying to hold a job, it's not just the attention part of it. It's also you're trying to keep that dopamine level going so you have that excitement about the job because it gets to the point where you hit that plateau and then all of a sudden it's like it's the same thing, same thing, same thing, and you're like, I want something new.
Yep. People with ADHD are always looking for something new, and I am always looking for something new. I know that it's a bad quality. But and I do think that you're right. Like, you do hit a plateau when you have ADHD and you're kind of done with the job. And people don't realize that, and also how hard it is to keep track of everything. And it's funny you say that about a podcast because a lot of people tell me I should start a podcast. And what you said is my fear. Like,
Yeah.
I would do recordings and I'd forget to put like I forget to do things a lot. I have inattentive ADHD, so I forget things a lot. I procrastinate a lot, all of that stuff. So I would be scared to have the podcast and exactly what you said. So it's funny that you said that because that's one of the reasons why I haven't started a podcast yet is because I'm nervous for all those factors.
I mean, one of the greatest stories I remember doing things is I went to a market research for job transitions. You know where people are transitioning between jobs. And one of the things I remember is they tell everyone there, they go, okay, there's paper up on the wall on both sides. Go to the piece of paper, and I want you to write down every job you had. And I'm sitting there and I wrote down three. I'm looking at everybody else around me, and I'm like, this person's got 10. This person's got 15. I'm like, I go to the woman. I'm like, I only have like three. Does that matter? She's like, well, are you still with it? I'm like, yeah. She's like, yeah, then it matters. And then I look back at it and I'm like, these people must probably have ADHD and not even know it because they're hopping from job to job to job.
Yep, absolutely. And you do hop from job, and I had the last few years I have hopped around a little with jobs trying to figure out. And then when I started writing my book, I was scared to even write a book. So I was like, this probably won't keep my attention either. But that was that was one of the first things in a few years that really kept my attention, writing it, not editing it, but writing it. So that was good. But
Now
yeah, so
that
a
brings me
lot of
to
things are hard for
yeah,
ADHD. And then when you get excited about it, you all of a sudden are like 0 to 100. That's also
yeah.
the amazing. There's many amazing things about ADHD, and I'm very glad I have it and I own it, and I know I interrupt people, and I know I'm messy, and I do a lot of things. But I think there's a lot of benefits to ADHD, and
There is.
definitely one of them is our excitement for everything.
I think one of the biggest benefits of having ADHD, as well as even autism, is the hyperfocus because when you
Hmm.
find that interest,
Hmm.
you're hyper focused on it and it becomes your passion.
Absolutely. And in a way, that's almost like a miracle when you find something that you like because you get so excited about it and so fascinated by it.
Now, you mentioned writing a book. How did you was your hyper focus the one thing that kept you in tuned so you weren't distracted and you didn't lose interest in it? You just wrote.
Yep, I have to thank my ADHD for the entire book because I wrote 2 chapters a week. My publisher's like, "You're writing 2 chapters a week." And I'm like, "That sounds scary." And he's like, "You don't have an option." So I did it. But my ADHD like kicked into gear. I was able to do it. I was writing 7 hours a day, which for an ADHD person, I feel like I should get a standing ovation. And I did it. It was my ADHD, and that's why I think ADHD is a superpower. It also was. I used to have a successful side business that I was really passionate about, and I know it was my ADHD that made me so successful with it, and I'm thankful for that too. So I know that although there are many negatives to ADHD, there's just as many positives, and I'm thankful that I have it and I'm able to be medicated for it, which helps a little. We're still I'm still trying to figure out 100% the medication for ADHD. It's quite the process. I don't know if you had that process at all, but for me, it's been a little bit of trial and error, but the medicine has been helping. So I'm grateful for that. It could maybe help a little more, but it's great that it's so common now and it's not taboo at all. I feel like ADHD is just there. And I'm trying to make bipolar as little taboo as ADHD is. Even though
Now,
I do think I'm more affected
mhm.
being stable for the last 4 years, I think my life is more affected by ADHD than bipolar for right now while I'm stable.
Now, did the publisher seek you out or did you have help finding a publisher?
I had help finding a publisher because my mentor is good friends with this publisher.
Ah, okay. Now, what was your writing process? Because I know everyone's got their own writing process. How did you give yourself like a set time? Like, okay, if I need to write 2 chapters a day or a week, did you like say, okay, I'm gonna write this much per day?
Yep, I did. And I like said it, which is again really good for someone with ADHD, and I was proud of myself for this, right? I think because I have ADHD I get more proud of myself, so I think that's
Mhm.
why I also like that I have ADHD. Like I clap myself and all this stuff when I do something that, someone without ADHD would do. But yes, I planned it out. I figured out when I had to write, and I tried to write when my kids were in school or activities so it didn't affect anything as being a mom. And what happened, how I got into the book was when I was actually manic. Um, I decided that I was going to write a book. So I wrote the worst book of my life when I was manic. I don't curse ever, ever. Every other word in this book was a curse because I was manic. But I posted on social media that I wrote a book, and everyone's like, "I want to read your book. I want to read your book. I want to read your book." Nobody knew I was manic, but hundreds of people were telling me they wanted to read my book at the time. So I was like, maybe I should write a book in the future. It was always in the back of my mind. And then unfortunately, my dad died a year and a half ago, and I watched him die from cancer.
Mm.
So while it was the hardest thing, and while I was watching him die, I couldn't sleep. So I started writing a book. And again, I thought it was the best book ever. And then once my dad died, like 6 months later, I looked at it. It was 31 pages. It wasn't a book, but I thought I wrote a whole book. So then that's why I got involved with the publisher who told me this is what you actually do. And, you know, you need to write 2 chapters and it needs to be 40,000 words and, you know, helpful information like that.
I mean, it's weird because I've gone through the same thing you went through watching my father die of cancer as well.
Oh, I'm
And
sorry.
and the feeling is like time slows down at that point
It does.
because you're no longer focusing on yourself, you're focusing on your father, and it feels like time just slows down. And where you think you've written 32 a whole book turns out to be only 32 pages, and you're like, huh, I thought I
Yeah.
wrote so much more.
I really thought I wrote a whole book until I put it in Microsoft Word and it was 31 pages. But
Yeah, I
I
mean,
guess I wrote 10 chapters and each chapter, I guess, was 3 pages. I thought it was obviously more. So I took it though. I did use a lot of the material and it was helpful to actually write the book. So that was good. So it wasn't wasteful time writing it. And it was therapeutic when my dad was dying. So I'm glad I wrote that 31-page pamphlet, as my husband calls it.
I mean, what people don't realize is writing is so therapeutic because you're putting yourself into it.
Hmm.
And I know this from experience because I'm working on my second book as we're talking. And it's more my first book was is a reflectiveness of my life growing up, going through everything I've gone through with the message of stepping out of your comfort zone. But
Love
my
it.
second book is a storybook, kind of like Harry Potter, but the characters are autistic and have ADHD and neurodivergent. And halfway through the book, there are certain using AI to help me out and everything. There are a lot of different dialogues that like hit me right in the heart, and I'm like, why am I crying so much?
Yep.
And I ask it, and it's like it's because you're putting yourself into those characters. You're finally giving yourself that openness that you never had before.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, and it's so true. And like so some of my book is like a little bit fictional because I talk about the people in the mental hospital, so I had to change their names and
Yeah,
stories. But don't you like writing fiction too? Like I felt like that was it was different because most of my book is the stories about me are all true. So most of
yeah,
it's true. It's just 1/3 is not really is made up a little bit like falsified stories just so for HIPAA purposes and because I'm a lawyer, so I know not to write everyone's true stories. But I had fun with that. I don't know. Like it was really fun. I think it's therapeutic to write about yourself and I love that you're like bringing it out. But I also think writing, you know, fiction is it's fun to get the creative juices flowing and
yeah.
get it out on paper.
It is because you don't re pe you don't realize you're writing about yourself.
Yeah.
There's a commercial back in the day. I don't know if you remember. Do you remember the Dove commercials where they have a bunch of people sit down and they have them talk and they have like a sketch artist and they're like, okay, describe yourself. And these
Hmm.
people are describing themselves and he turns around the picture and he's like, and it's not nothing what these people thought they were.
Right. Yeah, it's
And
so
it's
true.
because what we see is not what they see.
Yep. And I feel
There's,
like I see that all the time with my friends because they're so hard on themselves.
yeah,
And it's because we see ourselves, I'm hard on myself too. I think a lot of
yeah,
people are hard on themselves. And I think that we just see ourselves, everyone sees themselves differently than other people do. And people who love you, you don't see it. So my therapist is always says, talk to yourself like you talk to your best friends. Like be as nice and not hard on yourself as your best friends. And I think that's really good advice. So I try to talk to myself as if I would to a best friend and give myself grace. And when you're bipolar, you sometimes can't control your moods. And I just need to give myself grace a lot because unfortunately, that is part of being bipolar.
Now, looking back, does the moment feel obvious now, or was it subtle at the time?
Obvious that, what do you mean? Obvious that like I was going to have the moment of like after the mental hospital, was it clear that it was going to be like a changing point in my life? Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Yes, I kind of felt it. So I came home from the mental hospital and a group of friends dropped me right away. I have other friends, but one group around town dropped me and it made me fall into a depression.
Mm.
But I just knew deep down that it was happening to me for a reason. Like I couldn't find the reason, but I always try to find a reason. And I knew deep down that like it was because I had to get my story out. And now I post on social media and I've had hundreds of people message me that they're um with their problems that they have, and I've helped people, and I've been a therapist to not a therapist because I'm not certified therapist, I have to say that, but I've spoken to people as a friend and I've helped a lot of people, and I feel as though this all happened so I could help more people.
Now, your book explores lessons you learned while you were in a mental hospital. What
Mhm.
inspired you to take such a valuable, intense experience and turn it into a book?
That's a very good question. So I came home from the mental hospital and I made, after that group dropped me, I made the most amazing group of friends. We've been friends for years now. We're good. But I started to tell them about some of the lessons that I learned in the mental hospital, just easy ones that I learned. And they started to apply them and they're like, these work. And they're like, you should get the word out. And it was only a couple that I've actually shared with friends so far, but a lot of them are life lessons too. And so they started using it and they're like, you should get this out and you should write a book about it. So one of them said it and I was like, that's a good idea. That's a good thing to write my book about. And I figured not too many people know what it's like in a mental hospital. And I figured people will probably be intrigued to know what it's like to be in a mental hospital. And I was very fortunate. I was in a very nice one. Um, and I had a great experience. So I feel very fortunate. So I want to get the word out what I learned so that
Mm.
other people don't have to go to a mental hospital to learn all these lessons.
Now, was writing it therapeutic, challenging, or both?
I think therapeutic mostly. It was a little challenging. I had mental block at like one point where I couldn't write. I don't know if you got mental block at any point. But I literally couldn't write a word on the paper for some time. It was just, I got to a chapter, it was about the middle of, I had to ask for like an extension because it was so bad. I just couldn't put words on a paper. So
Mhm.
that was challenging. It was very emotional. I feel um, like emotionally it was hard because you're putting yourself out there and it brings back it brought back a lot of memories
Mhm.
of my time in the mental hospital, which was a fine time, but obviously not the best time of my life. I mean, you're 5 weeks away from your family, it's not the best time of your life, obviously. So it did bring back a lot of emotions. So that was a little challenging, but for the most part I'd say it was probably the most therapeutic thing I've done.
Now, did anything surprise you during your writing process?
um Lot surprised me. I mean, the thing that surprised me the most was how into it I was, which was great because before that I've tried like a few jobs here, a few jobs there, and nothing was really like getting me excited except when I wrote this book. But I think what surprised me the most was definitely like how well, one of the things that surprised me was like how much better I feel now than I did 4.5 years ago. And that's what makes me happy. And like how much better my life is now that it happened and writing all the stories and everything like that. I could see, I think for the first time, I saw for real that my life is so much better thanks to a mental hospital. So I am just grateful. And I think like I fully feel that way now. And I think that surprised me.
Now, ADHD plays a big role in your story. How did ADHD show up for you during the time, especially in the environment where structure and routine are so rigid?
Yes, and it's a lot in my book because I probably would have had 100 lessons I learned in a mental hospital if I actually paid attention. And I write that a lot. But because some of the biggest days that I knew I should have paid attention, and it's in a lot, I just literally couldn't pay attention. I mean, you know, you have ADHD. Sometimes you just literally can't pay attention, even if you want to try. I will say to myself, Laura, pay attention. And it's in the book, but I'd be like, Laura, pay attention to this lesson. And then all of a sudden, I don't know what I'm staring at, but I'm not listening to the lesson. Um, so, yes, it had a lot to do with me missing lessons and not paying attention as much as I should in the mental hospital. I did learn a lot, and I'm grateful. Maybe I'd be a more full person and have learned more if I paid attention. But it definitely in the book, a lot of points in it. I was like, oh, I wish I paid attention more. I wish I paid attention more. But, you know, I guess I paid attention enough to get 10 lessons out of it. So that's good.
Now, were the staff or doctors able to support your efficiency effectively?
Yes, the doctor. Well, I had, you get three people. You get a social worker, you get a
Hmm.
psychiatrist who's the doctor, and you get a psychologist. So my social worker and my psychiatrist were amazing, and the psychiatrist and social worker were amazing, and then the psychologist was okay. It's in the book, but they were fabulous. It was an amazing mental hospital. I am so lucky. I was in an executive house. So I got to have my phone for hours. You don't usually get your phone in a mental hospital. I was able to reach the outside, thank God. So I was just very fortunate for my position that I was in.
Now, did you understand your ADHD back then, or did clarity come later?
So I'll answer that in two ways. I always had ADD because I couldn't pay attention. So in the back of my mind, I knew I had it. I never realized inattentive ADHD. So until I was diagnosed with that, I didn't know inattentive ADHD, and that describes my whole life to a T. I miss things, I procrastinate, I I don't like a mess, but I'm a messy person. I try to clean, but that's not my favorite thing to do. Like everything about inattentive ADHD, I've learned so much in the last 2 years, and I didn't even know about it until I was diagnosed with it. So obviously, everyone knows about ADD and ADHD. I think it was pretty big in my childhood. We knew people with ADHD and ADD, and that's why I thought I always had it. But I got straight A's in school, so nobody was testing me for any reason. I mean, if you get, like, I never had a problem in school. I graduated from a top college, top 10%. I graduated from law school, top 10%. But I never had a problem, but I knew deep down I did. But then once I learned about inattentive ADHD, I feel so much better because I'm like, this just describes my whole life, and I feel good about it.
Now, let's talk about the intersection of ADHD and bipolar.
Okay.
Living with both ADHD and bipolar can be complicated. How do
Mhm.
those two conditions interact for you?
It's a lot of gray area, to be honest, because a lot of the symptoms can be very similar. And sometimes, like, even with ADHD, I've been doing a lot of research. You could lash out on people with ADHD. Um, so I try really hard not to lash out on people, and I use some techniques from the book, but bipolar or ADHD sometimes comes through anyway. And I don't know sometimes if it's ADHD or bipolar, and sometimes my brain's in a fog, and they say that could be from bipolar or ADHD. The biggest thing also that a lot of people don't realize is you have to be very careful with your meds when you're bipolar and you have ADHD. So that's been the biggest complication. um, you can't take a stimulant like the normal Ritalin, whatever, Adderall, sorry, Adderall,
Hmm.
because it can make you manic.
Hmm.
So I can't take the normal ADHD meds. I think that's probably the biggest problem in the overlap. So I had to take ones that work for 24 hours, but the stimulants I know would work so much better for me. And plus there's three there's three non-stimulants, and I had bad side effects from two of them. So this was the last one. Fortunately, it works. But it was hard to find that, and it's. I always know that I would be in a better position with my ADHD if I had stimulant meds, but I don't. So I just need to deal with that. And I think a lot of the whenever I have a symptom, a lot of times I don't know if it's ADHD or bipolar, to be honest, because they're very overlapping, and a lot of people with bipolar do have ADHD. And I think while I'm stable, it's hard to tell. Obviously, when I'm manic or depressed, it's obviously bipolar more than ADHD. But while I'm stable, a lot of times I'm like, did I lash out because of ADHD or because of bipolar? And am I brain fog because of it? And am I not doing this? Because they say you procrastinate with both. So it's a little confusing.
Now, is there one that tends to speak louder than the other?
Yes, my ADHD is present all the time and speaks louder. It's in every conversation. It's it just affects my life. My house isn't as clean as I want it to be. It just affects my life a lot more. Whereas bipolar, it's bigger episodes if it happens. So obviously I'm scared of mania, but I feel as though I take my meds and I just pray for the best every day.
Well, I know the experience you had with the medicines. When I was younger, my parents took me off of an ADHD medicine because they heard it had longer effects on liver and kidneys, and then they tried to put me on a non-stimulant. What a difference!
Right? I
One,
mean,
I
I
was
don't know, but I can imagine. I know that
Yeah, I
it's so
mean,
much better on
one,
stimulants.
I felt exhausted. I wasn't like awake. Two, I felt like a zombie.
Yep.
And three, it no matter what dosage they try to drop me to, it affected my stomach. I felt like I was sick.
Hmm.
It got to the point where I just said to him, "I'm taking myself off of this, and I'm gonna tell my neurosurgeon or neurologist this medicine is making me nauseous." So I
Yeah.
literally took myself off of it for years and years and years, and it wasn't until I did a clinical research for a supposed medicine for autism to help with communications that I became really good friends with the psychiatrist that ran the program, and he's like, "I'm gonna put you on Adderall." And then that was a huge thing because I literally went down to the smallest dose you can take because of the fact that one, even at 5 milligrams, I felt like I ran a race. Two, I was constantly getting into minimal little arguments with my mother, which I didn't want over nothing.
Hmm.
So we kept going for, he's like, okay, let's reset. Let's drop you down to a smaller dose. Let's drop you down. And then we got down to the smallest dose possible, and that seemed to work.
Okay, good. Yeah, it's a whole process to find medicine, but it's worth it. I had a process to find bipolar meds too. Um, they were making me so drowsy. Speaking of feeling like a zombie, I've never felt more like a zombie when I came home from the mental hospital. I was just not like I couldn't get excited. I couldn't get anything. And I thought that was just going to be my life. But for anyone listening, if you feel that way, that's not how your life's supposed to be. They could alter the drugs, and you're supposed to have emotions and feel happy and not be a zombie on any meds. So make sure that you are on the correct meds because I learned that I had to be. Now I feel so great on the meds that I'm on, and I know it could change at any time because of bipolar, but I'm thankful I went through the whole process of figuring it out. And
Now,
I
have
actually
you?
took, oh, sorry.
No, go on.
I actually took this test, a DNA test, to see what meds work the best for me. And that's what helped me figure out the right meds. So there's something out there that insurance usually covers for people that you can find out which meds interact the best with your body. And that helps me a lot.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, have you found any strategies that helped you manage both at the same time?
Oh yeah, I do a lot of breathing exercises. I do a lot of meditation, yoga. I was a college tennis player, so playing tennis, I manages it so well. I just hit the ball really hard instead of yelling at someone. Um, and I find keeping up with exercise. I realized when I was in the mental hospital, I need a lot of breaks also. I never used to take breaks. So mentally, I take a lot of breaks and I every day evaluate where my bipolar is and do checks throughout the day to ensure that my bipolar is stable. you have to make sure you're eating right. You have to make sure you're sleeping right. You need to make sure that your mood is stable and you don't feel anything. So I do a lot of self reflection to ensure, or to try to ensure, that both stay at bay.
Now, you mentioned learning powerful lessons when you were hospitalized.
Mhm.
What's one lesson from that time that still shapes you like your life today?
The number one rule is whenever, so because this is what helps my life and helps all my relationships. When I was in the mental hospital, they had us take anger management.
Hmm.
Um, I remember they asked the house, so it was eight of us in the house, and they asked us who thinks they need anger management. And not one of us raised their hand. And they're like, just so you know, almost all your families think you need anger management. So to this day, I don't know if my family thought I needed anger management, but I decided to listen. And the number one rule they taught us that really helps me is when you get angry to wait 24 hours and not respond for 24 hours
Hmm.
and come up with your what you want to do in 24 hours. Think about it, sleep on it, don't react. So, as part of bipolar, when I react, I say things I don't mean, I say things that aren't true, and I say things I don't mean. So, I try to avoid that. By waiting 24 hours, I'm usually not mad. I usually don't lash out on people. It helps for ADHD too, because you lash out on people. So, I always wait 24 hours. I've barely lashed out on people in the last 4.5 years, waiting the 24 hours. And everyone knows I wait the 24 hours. I tell them if I'm upset. I'm waiting the 24 hours because I don't want to say something that I will later regret. And this has helped my relationship with my husband so much and my relationship with friends and family so much by waiting 24 hours.
I've learned that from talking with a guest who's a psychologist because I had said something to someone who was somewhat of a friend and she stopped talking to me and I was talking to her beforehand and I'm like, what did I do wrong? And this is what I wrote to her in an email. And she's like, the problem is when you are upset, people are in the moment. They don't think. And when you write something down in an email, you don't realize it until later that what you wrote could be hurtful.
Exactly.
And then the other thing I learned is if you put the word but in anywhere in your sentence, anywhere in your email after the first sentence, it's basically erasing that first sentence and this all they focus on is that second because it's like, but, and they're like, and they don't focus on that first part anymore.
I know. One of my best friends called me out on that. She's like, because I was like apologizing, sort of. And then I was like, but. And she's like, that's not an apology if you have a but in it. I'm like, you're so right. That's not an apology if you have a but in it. You're correct. And you're right. People do focus on the but and whatever you say after that, because that's what
Yeah.
you really mean. So I try not to use, since she taught me that lesson, I try not to use but either because of that.
Now, was that lesson learned the hard way or through someone who helped you?
No, it's definitely through someone who helped me. They just told us it, and then like I met with this private therapist, and she's like, work on it. And I tried it in the hospital, and I worked on it. Someone pissed me off there, and I was able to wait the 24 hours. And then I was like, this is the stupidest thing that I'm mad about. It was nothing. And then I used it with my husband, and it was super. That one I learned the easy. I most of them I learned just because they taught it to us, and a lot of them are like what they taught to us. But some of them come from just lessons from other people in the mental hospital that taught me things as well.
So you're using that lesson in day-to-day life and it's helped you out a great deal.
It has, yes. It's been such a life-changing thing, and I don't yell at my husband as much. He the other day was like, or about a year ago even, he's like, do you realize we don't fight anymore since you came home from the mental hospital? And I was like, yeah, I've worked on it, you know. But it was my bipolar. I know
Yeah.
he's a really great guy, and I know it was my bipolar that caused a lot of our arguments. So, and still does. But we fought a lot less. We've been fighting a lot less thanks to this wonderful 24-hour rule.
Now, mental hospitals often come with stigma. What's one misconception people have about psychiatric hospitals that you want to break?
Well, I think a lot of people think it's still from the 1950s where you have padded walls, and you're in a room, but I will say that the psych ward was just what I thought would be it was a nightmare, just what you think it would be. A public hospital psych ward was a nightmare, just what you think it would be. But I want everyone to know that there are mental hospitals that are so nice. Mine was so nice. I had a private chef. That's how nice it was. We had massages. Like it was a great mental hospital and you can learn so much. And that fear that you have when you're going, I know that fear, but just know you're taking the best journey for yourself. And if you need to go, great, get the help you need. It will change your life.
Now, was there something you assumed before going in that turned out to be totally wrong?
Yes, I assume the hard part was the mental hospital, the 4 weeks. That is not the hard part. The hard part is when you come home, because for 4 weeks, you are by yourself, you are working on yourself, and you feel like you're in a good place, right? You're ready to go home. And I mean, my kids and my husband mean everything to me, but then you get home to a crazy schedule and you're trying to work on yourself after working on yourself for 4 weeks. And the hard part is definitely when you come home, and I felt embarrassed every time I saw someone for the first time when I came home from the mental hospital because there is a stigma. um, Now I don't feel a stigma. I talk about it on social media all the time about being in a mental hospital. I don't feel the stigma anymore, but the hardest part definitely was coming home and having to deal with the aftermath of it and trying to deal with the aftermath of it.
Now, how would you describe the environment to someone who's never been there?
Oh, it was great. The mental hospital I went to was super nice. Everyone was as nice as could be. It was a beautiful house that I was staying in. It was all nice people. I liked my house a lot. I liked the people in it. It was a pretty enjoyable 4 weeks. I will say that, which I want more people to know about. It wasn't the worst thing in the world. It wasn't scary. It was actually a pleasure. And a lot of people in my house, like I had to kind of go because I was in a manic episode, but many people in my house came to the mental hospital even just because they were anxious or depressed, and we had good experiences. It wasn't a bad experience. So I don't want people who are going to a mental hospital to ever think you're going to be going in necessarily for this horrible experience. You might have one of the best experiences of your life.
Now, let's shift to something a little bit more happier. You
Yes.
signed with a publisher that's very huge. What
Yep.
was it like getting the call or the email that your book was being picked up?
So excited. I was like crying. I cry about everything though. I don't know if that's bipolar or ADHD. I blame bipolar. I don't know. Maybe you're emotional with ADHD too. But I'm one of the most emotional people
Hmm.
that I know for sure, but maybe in the world. So I cry about, my kids getting hundreds on tests. So of course I'll cry about that. But it was great. I'm super excited. I Yeah, it's exciting. I'm nervous to get my book out because it's very personal.
Hmm.
Um, so I'm excited, but definitely a little nervous to get my story out. So it was mixed emotions, but mostly happy.
Did it feel surreal?
Yes, it
Now,
does.
who was the first person you told?
Definitely my husband.
Now, writing about mental health requires courage. How did you find the emotional balance between honesty and protecting your own well-being while writing?
That's a very good question. So what happened was I had a pretty big following on social media before the mental hospital. Um, I I was in direct sales. I sold tea, and I had a team of 4,000 people. So I have 5,000 friends on Facebook, and I came home from the mental hospital. I know you're asking about the book, but I came home from the mental hospital, and I had two decisions. I had one decision. I either could be as honest as I could be, or just go silent on social media. Right? Like I had to either say I was in a mental hospital. Everyone was When you post every single day, 3 times a day, and then all of a sudden you don't post for a month, everyone wondered what happened to you, right? Everyone heard the stories
Yeah.
that I was probably in a mental hospital. So I was like, I could either own it 4 years ago or I could just go silent. And I decided to own it. So I've been loud and proud on Facebook for 4.5 years. about being bipolar, about everything in the mental hospital, about losing friends, about the hardness of coming home from a mental hospital. So by the time I went to write the book, I felt as though it was easy because I've already gotten out of my comfort zone. Like I know you said you wrote the book about getting out of your comfort zone. I was
Yes.
already out of that comfort zone. So this was just, like some of my Facebook posts get 20,000 views. So I know people are reading about me being in a mental hospital. What's the difference of me putting it in a book? More people probably see it on Facebook than they then will read my book. Um, so that made me because when I came home I had no choice. I felt in my head. Now I feel like it was easy to write about it.
Now, were there chapters you had to step away from for a bit?
Yep. I had to, well, I had the mental block for a couple, and then I mean, they're emotional. So you write it and you feel it. Like, especially,
Mm.
you could probably relate, but like writing back about my dad dying, I always get emotional. Um, so yeah, sometimes I had to step away when it got too emotional.
I mean, yeah, you're right. I mean, when I wrote my first book, it a lot of it hit me hard because it was when my father was still around, and as you know, the memories come flooding in,
Yep.
and it's
Exactly.
just like, okay, I need to step back and let myself calm down, ground myself, and then give myself time to heal.
Yep, absolutely. And I felt that a few times, mostly with my dad, but sometimes with some very personal things, whatever, but that's in the book, not personal. But I felt that and I definitely had to take a step back. And you do find all the memories and you think of your childhood and you think of your adulthood and you think of everything and it's all on paper and it's just crazy that it's there and that someone, at least one person is going to read it, right? That's crazy.
Now, did you have someone reading your early drafts or emotional check-ins?
Yeah, so I made my best friend and my husband read my introduction because I was like, I have no idea if this is the worst thing that I ever wrote in my life or if it's good.
Mhm.
So they helped. And then I actually got a writing coach because I needed it.
Now, let's talk about your support system. Who
hmm
is someone who has made a meaningful difference during your time in the hospital?
I have two best friends since I've been in kindergarten. My parents and my sister and Matt were all great, but that's what you'd expect. I have two best friends since one I've been best friends with my whole life, and one's since kindergarten. Oh God, I'm gonna get emotional. And they were the best.
Do you still stay in
They,
touch with them?
oh yeah, every day. Um, one helped drive me to the mental hospital, and they were just there nonstop.
How did they help you see things differently?
Um, I think when I got the diagnosis, I was so scared how people would react, and just having two best friends with unconditional love meant the world to me.
All right.
And same for my husband. He had unconditional love too. And it means the world. But yeah, and they just were positive all the time and spoke to me and said it'll be all right and they were right.
Now, for listeners who may be struggling right now, what would you say to someone who feels like they're too much, too scattered, or too broken?
Okay, well, you're never broken. Time always heals things. I find honestly, if you feel broken, there's always therapy and medication. I mean, I always suggest therapy first, right? Medication might be, I mean, I do have medication because I'm bipolar and have ADHD, but not everyone needs to be on medication. So I always, if people are feeling broken, there is help out there. Sometimes you feel like you're dating a therapist. But if you find the right therapist, it literally is life changing. Do it, go for it. Your mental health is the most important thing in the world. Once you figure out your mental health, your happiness stems from that. And I know I have such a happier life now because I worked so hard on my mental health for the last 4.5 years. It's a struggle if you are struggling to work on your mental health, but it's probably the best thing that you could do for you and everyone else in your life.
Now, is there something you wish someone had told you back then?
I wish someone would tell me, um, that everything will be okay. When I was so stressed after the mental hospital, I wish someone would tell me that this is how I'd feel 4.5 years later.
What is one small step someone can take to feel today to feel less alone?
Yeah, I mean, I think I to feel less alone, I think either talk to a therapist or you know what, like a lot of times people, and I say this all the time, right? So I think a lot of times people feel alone and they just don't talk to people who will want to talk to them, right? Like a lot of people are scared to pick up the phone and call an old friend. But when old friends call me, I love it. Like if I feel alone and my friends aren't available, I pick up the phone and I call someone who I've, even if I haven't spoken to them in a while, everyone, my college friends, sometimes I don't speak to them for a while, but everyone wants to have human interaction. And I think a lot of people are trying to figure out subsequent to COVID what our social situation is, right? So we had everyone was social in 2019, 2020 happened, we got pushed to, very small circles of basically our family. And I see now society trying to get back into what we were previous to COVID. And I feel like a lot of people feel alone since COVID because it was an isolating time. And we never had, like, yes, it opened up, but we never had an official announcement go be back to your normal life before 2020. And I think that a lot of people feel alone, but they can take advantage of calling someone and getting back to where they were with friends, because I do feel like a lot of society is still in the 2020 era of being isolated.
And finally, where can people find out more about you and pick up a copy of your book?
Well, my book is going to be called Finding Flossom, so it needs to be published first and figured out, but it will be
Right.
on Amazon and everything like that, I know. If you want to find me, my Instagram is Finding Flossom, and my Facebook, where I post the most, is Laura Greenberg Schiller.
And that's it, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Reed Miles. That was Laura Greenberg Chiller, and I'll see you in the next one. And remember, you're never alone. Thank you, Laura.
Oh, thank you so much. That was great.